Welcome to Dollars with Diana. Hi, I'm Diana, and in this episode, we're going to be breaking down AMD. Is it a good stock to buy? So we're going to evaluate it together. And just a disclaimer, I do own AMD. So there are going to be timestamps below if you wanted to, skip this part out. Ever since I purchased AMD, I am down. Literally. Like I'm at $125 and it's lower than that, obviously. So we're going to take a look at AMD's valuation, future growth, past performance, health, management, and ownership today. And let me know down below if you own AMD and what are your plans for AMD and if you're planning on purchasing AMD. So let's take a closer look. AMD is a semiconductor worldwide company. It's trading at 52% below estimate of its fair value. The earnings are forecasted to grow 32% per year, and the earnings grew by 95% over the past year. So let's take a look at all of the risk checks for AMD. So does it pass these risk checks? So it passed if there's any concerning recent events, that there's no concerning events detected. Does it have profit margins improved over the past year? It passed. The company is currently profitable. Do they have sufficient financial data available? Yes. The debt is low and not considered a risk. The revenue is $26 billion. The company's earning is high quality. The market cap is meaningful, 163 billion, and earnings are forecast to grow by an average of 32% per year for the next 3 years. They do not pay a dividend. And then it says shareholders have not been meaningfully diluted in the past or recent. No significant insider selling over the past 3 months. AMD does not have negative shareholders' equity, and the share price has been stable over the past 3 months compared to the US market. So that's just a brief overview. Let's look a little bit more into the detail of the fair value. So the last share price at the time of this recording in March is $98. I purchased it at $125 a couple months ago, and yeah, it's really sad to see stocks that have so much potential go down so drastically. Hey friend, make sure to grab all the links down below that I have for you. Your fair value is $129, but currently priced at $98. So here we have the growth estimate of 2025, this is where we are. The revenue of $25 billion, earnings $1.6 billion. And here are future estimates that you see here. We're going to look a little bit more closer, but by 2030, it appears that the revenue will be $52 billion and the earnings $3.3 billion. So here are the price history and the performance. Let's take a look right here. March 13th, $98, but you could clearly see a declining trend going downwards since October, actually. And let's go ahead and take a look at recent news. This is the GAAP opportunity you've been waiting for, rating upgrade. AMD unveils 5th generation embedded processors. So overall, all recent news and updates, there's nothing negative. Right here, Seeking Alpha has, I am buying the dip with confidence. Yeah, I mean, I would feel a lot better if I bought it around $90 instead of $125 like I did before. Okay, shareholder returns. In the past 7 days, it returned almost negative 1%. The US semiconductor industry, negative almost 5%. And the US market, negative almost 4% here. But within the last year, AMD stock fell by 47%, and the semiconductor industry was up almost 3%, and the US market was up almost 7%. So AMD underperformed the US semiconductor industry, and then AMD underperformed the US market. So here we have AMD here, and then the industry average, which is 8.3% versus the 5.7% here. we have some competitors, which is Qualcomm, ARM Holdings, Texas Instruments, Analog Devices. More about the company. The CEO is Lisa Su, and it was founded in 1969. It has 28,000 employees, and it operates through 4 segments: data center, client, gaming, and embedded. It also offers artificial intelligence accelerators, microprocessors, graphic processors, units as standalone devices. All right, so let's take a look at the fundamental summary. The PE ratio is 96 times, and the PS ratio is 6.2 times. We have earnings and revenue. Some other expenses include 12 billion. The gross profit is 13 billion. Cost of revenue 12 billion, revenue 25 billion, and earnings 1.6 billion here. Let's take a look at the valuation. Is AMD undervalued compared to its fair value analyst forecast and its price relative to the market? So the score is 2 out of 6, so it is below fair value. It is significantly below fair value. However, it doesn't meet these criterias from price to earnings versus fair ratio, price to earnings versus industry, and price to earnings versus peers. So here we have the current price, which is $98, and the fair value right in the center is about $204. Here we have how does AMD PE ratio compare to its peers. So Analog Devices 64 times, Texas Instruments 33, Qualcomm 16 times. I think, this is usually compared to like, which one should I buy? NVIDIA is not on here, but it's usually compared to NVIDIA, even though I feel like it's much smaller. Price to earnings ratio, okay. And the average PE ratio is 65 times. So here we have historical price to earnings ratio. Wow, look at this. That was September 29, 2023. And then the other peak was in March 2023. Look at this huge drop. This was June 2023. All right, we have the price to earnings ratio versus industry. So we kind of discussed this, but this is just a chart that you can just oversee it here. And price to earnings ratio versus fair value ratio. So the fair value would be 50 times PE ratio, but it's currently at 96 times. Analyst price targets. So this is March 12th. Average 1-year price target $148. So it would be up 51%. And let's continue here. Other competitors, Qualcomm. Future growth, it meets 4 out of 6 future check criterias. EPS is expected to grow by 30% per year. Return on equity is forecasted 18% in 3 years. Let's take a closer look at what Felix and Friends has to say about buying AMD stock right now.
So on, but if you're asking me right now, would I put $1 into AMD? The answer is simply no. And I'm not saying this as a sort of hater. I don't hate the stock. I think they have a marvelous CEO. I think they've got some good products coming up. I think there will be a market share for AMD. And in the meantime, I have my money in stocks that I think will actually perform over the next 6 months, 12 months.
If you want to take a closer look at this video that I reviewed Felix and Friends webinar, I will link that down below for you. From 2025 to 2026, revenue 31 billion, earnings 3.9 billion. December 2026, revenue 38 billion, earnings 6.69 billion, and then December 2027, revenue 44 billion and earnings 9.3 billion. Okay, analyst future growth forecasts. We have the company 32%, the industry 22%, the market 13%. So it does show strong company growth here. So it is above the saving rate of 2.8%. So yeah, so it's basically saying don't put your money in the bank and invest in quality stocks. Okay, so we have the EPS ratio here. So if we're looking at 2025, 2026, and 2027. Future return on equity For the company is 18% and the industry is 11%. Okay, this is, here we go. We have NVIDIA here, and then Credo Technology, Astera Labs. Past earnings performance, it meets the criteria 4 out of 6 checks here. And then we have some full reports, but we're just not going to cover those. This video is already getting pretty long here. Okay, so we have revenue and expenses breakdown. So the revenue, okay, 25 billion, gross profit 13 billion, cost of sales 12 billion, earnings 1.6 billion. Expenses are pretty high, 12 billion. I wish that their earnings were just a bit higher compared to their expenses. And then the expenses are broken down into general, administrative, like salary. And then we have research and development, 6 billion, sales and marketing, 1 billion, non-operating expenses, 445 million, and then other $2 billion. All right, here we have earnings and revenue history. Look at this peak here. When was this again? This was December 2022, and here we are. Yeah, it just goes up to December 2024 here. So quality earnings, AMD has high quality earnings, and then growing profit margin. Its net profit margins are 6.4%, are higher than the last year here. So past growth analysts, earnings trend, AMD earnings trends have declined by 6.2% per year over the past 5 years. So that is something to just watch out if you're thinking about investing into AMD. And then also another negative here, AMD's return on equity, 2.9% is considered low compared to the industry, which was 11%. Return on assets, the company just 2%. The whole industry, semiconductor industry, was 7%. So this was last year 3%, and then 3 years ago 36%. That's a significant difference there. Here we have some other competitors here, and then Advanced Micro Devices balance sheet health. So it does overall meet the health criteria of 6 out of 6 checks. So the balance sheet looks healthy here. Financial position analysis from its assets for short-term liabilities, long-term assets 50 billion, and then long-term liabilities is 4 billion. So debt to equity history and analysis. So we're looking over here. This is the most recent data from December of 2024. Debt is 1.72 billion and equity was 57 billion. Okay, balance sheet here. Hey friend, before we continue on breaking down AMD, I have an important question for you. Do you have a money block? And how do you know for sure? Take the free money quiz down below to find out. All right, now let's continue our analysis of AMD stock. Here we have, oh cool, on semiconductor. Let me know if you want me to feature on semiconductor next in the comments below. Advanced Micro Devices dividends and buyback. It does not give any dividends out, so we're skipping all that. Let's look at management. It meets 3 out of 4 criteria. The CEO is Lisa Xu, appointed in 2014, has a tenure of 10.5 years, and the compensation is 30 million, which is comprised of 4% salary, 96% bonuses, company stock, and options. Compensation versus market. Lisa's total compensation of 30 million is above the average for companies of similar size in the US market. Okay, so here we have the executive vice president makes 32 million. Okay, why does the VP make more than the CEO? I don't know. I guess they'll have to figure that out by themselves. Average tenure for AMD employees is almost 3 years, and the average age is 56 years old. Here we have the board members. Okay, guys, you know what I'm going to say here. I serve on a nonprofit as a board president, and I get 0. So when I see their compensation of $30 million to serve on the board, or $499,000 or $447,000, it's just amazing to see that actually board members get paid. Here we have average tenure, it's almost 8 years here, and average age is 61 years old for the board members. Ownership. This is good. I mean, some of the other stock reports that I cover where I would see more selling off than I had seen purchasing. But right here, it says that this person purchased 4,645 shares from one individual. So that's cool. I mean, hey, Philip, I hope this does well for you in the long term. You know, I always want to see people win. No matter what stock you buy, you know, I want to see everybody do well. There's enough for everybody, guys. There's enough money out there to make every single human living healthy. All right, ownership breakdown. Who owns AMD overall? Private companies. I mean, this is such a tiny percentage. Public companies, tiny percentage. The state or government, 10% owns it. Individual insiders, 57%. And the general public, which is me or possibly you, is 32%. Okay, cool. Vanguard is respectable. I actually have a bunch of stuff in Vanguard. And then BlackRock and a few others here. So we have the company, okay, and number of employees, 28,000 employees as of December 2024. The location is in California, Santa Clara, California, right next to the Intel Museum. All right, friends, let me know what you think about AMD. Is this something that you're interested in getting, or are you going to wait for a better buy-in? Let me know in the comments below. If you are a holder, what are your plans with AMD stock? Well, friend, what did you think about AMD stock? If you found this analysis helpful in your decision on whether or not to buy AMD, please hit that like button and help support this new channel. I want to build a community of traders, investors, so that we can learn together and gain wealth $1 at a time. Thank you so much for watching until the end. I hope to connect with you soon. And in the meanwhile, check out this video next.